good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Meet Touchstone Essentials Live, the product education version. I'm here with Cindy Klement, our wonderful teacher and trainer who's with us tonight. Cindy, as you know, she's got a master's degree in nutrition. She teaches as an adjunct professor. She knows her stuff. She's been an herbalist for over 40 years, herbalist and nutritionist, working with people directly, helping them improve their health. She knows her stuff, and we're so grateful to have Cindy here with us tonight. I want to remind you of her book, Your Body's Environmental Chemical Burden. Cindy is an expert on environmental toxins and how they affect the health of your body. So we're tickled to have you here, Cindy. So grateful to you for taking the time to be with us and share your knowledge. We'll go ahead and turn the time over to you. Tonight, we're talking about pH balancing with Touchstone Essentials products. Is that right?
That's right, Craig. Thank you.
All right, here we go.
All right, folks. So as Craig mentioned, we're going to be taking a look at why there is such a strong need for balancing the pH in our bodies and how exactly we can accomplish this. You know, it's been said that an acidic body is the silent killer at work. In fact, just yesterday, I noticed, I follow Dr. David Perlmutter, several of the functional medicine physicians that are kind of famous, I would have to say. He's also a best-selling author. And just yesterday, he was saying that elevated uric acid levels in the body are responsible for about 16% of the deaths in the United States and 39% of the cardiovascular disease patients in the United States. So this is a very timely topic. Of course, we've known about this, my goodness, I think since the 60s, but now it's all coming to light. So once again, we're gonna really take a little deep dive into what we need to know and how we're going to fix it. And we'll start with exactly what is the pH. And what the pH is it's a measure of the acidity or the alkalinity of a solution. So the lower the number of the pH, the more acidic the solution is. And likewise, the higher the number, the more alkaline the solution is. Now, many of our vital bodily functions depend on this, of maintaining this ideal pH in the body. Things like our digestive system, our enzyme activity in our body, our hormonal balance, as well as the functioning of our respiratory system, our gastrointestinal system, our circulatory system, and of course, our urinary system. And our focus tonight is on that urinary system. Acidosis is what I'll call the seed bed of conditions such as having low energy in the body, joint pain in the body, difficulty losing weight if our immune system isn't working well. It's also the seed bed for diabetes and, as Dr. Perlmutter mentioned, cardiovascular disease. The top dietary sources or causes of an acid pH are soda, alcohol, sugar, and animal foods. Now, the storage of these acids occur in our body. They're stored in our tissues, in our joints, and in our muscles. So you may have noticed that even after you're exercising and there's that excess lactic acid, not uric acid, but that lactic acid in your muscles, that can make you quite sore as well. Now, our body's acid management occurs in our colon, in our kidneys, our lungs, and our skin. And these are all the eliminative organs of the body, and they all excrete these acids. The buffering of those acids occurs with our intake of calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. Whoop, 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 I went too fast. I want to talk to you about a 7-year study that was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. They had 9,000 women, and this study was conducted at the University of California in San Francisco. And they showed during this study that the women that had chronic acidosis were at a greater risk for bone loss than those who had a normal pH level. And folks, this is because the body borrows calcium from the bones in order to balance that pH. Calcium is very alkaline. So it borrows it from the bones to kind of douse the acidity down. Now, the scientists who carried out this experiment believe that many of the hip fractures prevalent among middle-aged women are connected to high acidity, high uric acid levels caused by a diet rich in animal foods and very low in greens and vegetables and fruits, which are so alkalizing. Now, you may have heard about gout. Gout is an illness that's caused by the deposition of uric acid traces in the body joints. Now, uric acid is a breakdown. It's a breakdown product, I should say, of something called purines that are part of many of the foods that we eat in our daily diet. And what purines are they are these chemical compounds that form uric acid when we've metabolized certain foods. Now, it's not that purines are bad by any means. In fact, purines are one of two chemical compounds that the cells use to make the building blocks of DNA and RNA. So they're not bad per se, but you want to avoid high amounts of them because when your body digests these purines, it produces that waste product called uric acid. And an abnormality in our body's handling of uric acid and the crystallization of these compounds in the joints can cause really painful attacks of arthritis. They can cause blockage of the kidney filtering tubules with uric acid crystals, and this can all lead to kidney failure. So since these purines are converted in the body to this uric acid, these purine-rich foods should be kind of limited in the diet, or to get more of these alkaline substances in this diet to kind of balance that with it. So again, those foods are alcohol, sugar, meat, soda, those types of things. So again, too many purines in the body can cause uric acid in the kidneys to crystallize and harden. And that can even result in kidney stones. Now, for those of you who may have had kidney stones, these serious cases of kidney stones can be very painful and may even require surgical intervention to eliminate them completely. So some of the common symptoms of what we call metabolic acidosis include just somewhat, kind of confused or feeling very fatigued or weak or having headaches often, that sleepiness throughout the day or feeling sick to the stomach and not wanting to eat. When you have metabolic acidosis, it can affect the rate of your heartbeat and cause a faster heart rate. It causes a person to kind of sigh a lot with these kind of breathing. And then also a breath that smells a little bit fruity. Those are all signs of metabolic acidosis. But on the other hand, we can also suffer from metabolic alkalosis. So remember, we want to keep that pH at the proper level, not too acid, not too alkaline, because when we're too alkaline, we can have muscle twitching and muscle cramps and muscle spasms and tingling and numbness and feeling irritable. So again, these are really important that we keep that pH level balanced in the body. So what is the optimal level in the body? Well, it varies between urine, saliva, and blood. A healthy saliva typically is in the range of a 6.2 to 7.6, and that's healthy saliva. So if you have some of those little saliva, the pH sticks, and you put a little saliva in your hand, and you kind of dip the little stick, and you can kind of see what does your pH range in your saliva run. And of course, it's not right after you drank a soda or ate greens, because that will disrupt it. But just to kind of get a basic idea, several hours after a meal to test it, you might be able to tell. Now, the normal ranges of urine vary a lot more than that. They vary from anywhere from 4.6 to 8.0. But a very high, consistently high pH of the urine can be due to the kidneys not functioning properly to remove those acids, or kidney failure, or even a urinary tract infection. And likewise, if the urine pH is always kind of on the low side, it can mean that there's just too much acid in the body fluids, or that you're just not feeling well at all. Now, that's saliva and that's urine. The blood is a different story. The acids cannot stay in the blood because it's critical to keep the blood pH within a very narrow range. And that range is 7.35 to 7.45. So a very narrow range. And this normal blood pH has to be maintained within that very narrow range to ensure the proper functioning of all of our metabolic processes and the delivery of the right amount of oxygen to our tissues. Also, the cells can't extract nutrients from our foods or supplements if our body's pH isn't optimal. Now, just as a side note, it's interesting that omega-3 fatty acids assist in the pH balancing of the body by holding on to calcium so that it won't kind of use it all up, if you will. So let's talk a little bit about, what do I do if I'm acidic? Well, first of all, enzymes are necessary to balance the pH, but we also need to use alkalizing foods, especially green foods, which of course are abundant in super green juice. Super green juice, it's got the 44 superfoods, 3 grams of fiber, 3 grams of protein, a billion colony forming units of probiotics. But this nutrient rich, alkalizing green product, or the greens in this product, can then help offset that high acid pH in the body, offset the acid effect, and support that ideal pH for a balanced body. Because remember, an acid pH triggers inflammation. It slows metabolism, and we don't want either of those. Super green juice also has the adaptogenic plants in it. And remember from our previous webinars, we talked about how adaptogenic plants and things, they help our bodies adapt to stress. So the stress doesn't change, but our reaction to it does. And that's important because stress in and of itself can create more acid in the body. So we need greens and we need enzymes to alkalize our body. But do you think that toxins affect the urinary system? Well, of course they do. And the reason not only do they affect the urine, but you have to remember that the urinary tract is an eliminative organ. So as these toxins pass through, they're going to go through the filters in those kidneys and kind of really make a mess of things. There was a really interesting study that I talk about in my book, and it's called the Agricultural Health Study. And they studied farmers, and what they found is that the members of the farm family, even if they haven't used the pesticides, the members of the farm family can end up receiving a dose of pesticides after the actual farmer himself, the worker themselves, applied them. So the case in point was a farmer applied their organophosphate pesticides to pumpkins with this hand cranked duster. And after which this agricultural health study tested his urine, and his urinary levels rose 3 times in magnitude following that use, while his spouse and his 2 children showed twice the magnitude of pesticides excretion in their urine. So these pesticides are being passed through. But when it comes to having pesticides in the body, a shorter gestational time and a decreased fetal growth have been observed and have been related to these increased urinary levels of pesticides in expectant mothers in their late pregnancy. We also know that a higher incidence of chronic kidney disease and chronic renal failure, kidney failure, has been reported in people between the ages of 40 and 60 living in agricultural areas. So it's really important for us to not only avoid these toxicants as much as possible, but understand which organs they are going through so we can support and strengthen and detoxify those organs. Another chemical, BPA, I'm sure you're all familiar with BPA because everywhere you look today, it says BPA free. Although I will tell you, the chemical that they are using in its place is considered safe at this time only because there isn't enough research done on it yet. I really don't trust the replacement chemical yet, be it BPS, but we shall see. The CDC found detectable levels of BPA in 93% of urine samples from over 2,500 subjects over the age of 6 in the US. Crazy. Pregnant women, their urinary concentrations of BPA and another chemical called phthalates during pregnancy, what they found were that these urinary concentrations of both of these chemicals during pregnancy were associated with a higher, it's called a social responsiveness scale. It's an SRS scale that they score children ages 7 to 9, and it's associated, they use that to diagnose autism. So what they found is that with BPA and phthalates in the urine, which means they have passed through the urinary tract and through the kidney filters, showed a significant correlation between higher autism in these children. So, you know, it's pretty crazy out there, folks. I mean, we need to detoxify, and thank goodness we have a great product for that. Another analysis conducted in the United States, it was a 5-year project with over 2,800 children between the ages of 6 and 19. They revealed a significant association between obesity and urinary BPA concentrations. In fact, so much so that the Center for Disease Control has now designated BPA as an environmental obesogen, contributing to worldwide obesity. So we know that BPA has been correlated to cardiovascular disease and other things like that. So important, we need to detoxify an organ where so many of these chemicals are being passed through the filters. Other chemicals that are showing damage to the urinary tract are something called volatile organic compounds, which are called VOCs for short. And what they found was long-term exposure to VOCs resulted in a damage not only to the central nervous system and the liver, but also the kidneys. And some of those VOCs, one is called benzene, and that was responsible for weakness of the adrenal gland, the liver, the kidneys. There's another chemical called toluene, which showed a significant increase in cancer of the kidneys and bladder. And then just remember that the kidneys process these foreign chemicals by filtering them and then excreting them in the urine. So again, it certainly makes sense to strengthen and detoxify the urinary tract so that we don't damage those organs in that system. So of course, let's get those toxins out of the body and protect the health of the urinary tract and other body systems and keep those toxicants from recirculating in the body. Because as you know, the zeolites have these little cages that grab onto that stuff and won't let it affect the eliminative organs. The zeolites, they're natural supplements. They work at the cellular level. to safely remove these toxicants that we accumulate in our everyday life and get them through the urine. They're sized just right, as you know, to reach the body at a cellular level. So before we go any further, I want to take a very quick look at the urinary system. So folks, the basic function again of the urinary tract is to maintain a proper fluid balance, to eliminate wastes and toxins, maintain that proper pH balance, and produce hormones that stimulate the bone marrow to make red blood cells. The urinary system, of course, also maintains calcium in the bones. Now, the kidneys, as you look at them, are, of course, you've seen kidney beans, and that's what they're named after. Is these kidney beans our kidneys are bean shaped, and they're about 5 inches long. They only weigh about 5 ounces, but inside each kidney are millions of things called nephrons, and the nephrons serve as the filter for that 4 to 5 quarts of blood in our human bodies, which circulate through those nephrons every 45 minutes or so. So the job again of these nephrons is to filter and purify the blood as it circulates through the kidneys. And when we have chronic kidney disease, our nephrons no longer work, and that's when we have to start undergoing kidney dialysis. Now, the ureters, if you can see, they're coming down from the kidney, the little yellow tube going down to the bladder. The ureters are approximately 10 to 12 inches long. They're only a quarter of an inch in diameter. So imagine passing a kidney stone in something that small, which is why it's so painful. Now, these tubes, these ureters, are lined with tiny, smooth muscles that carry the urine from the kidneys to the bladder through a peristaltic motion. So one drop at a time, and it takes it down to the bladder, which of course is the storage tank that can comfortably hold about 16 ounces for anywhere from 2 to 5 hours when the system is healthy. Now, lastly, it's the urethra. You can kind of see it on the male anatomy and the female anatomy. The male urethra is about 8 inches long, whereas the female urethra is only 1.5 inches in length. And because it's so close in proximity to the anus, this is where E. coli and bacteria can enter that female urethra and lead to urinary tract infections. And this is why women get more of those UTIs than do men. But we've got a great answer for that. Super Greens Plus D has 5 billion probiotics / prebiotics, especially the lactobacilli family. Now, the use of probiotics, especially lactobacilli, has been used for the prevention of urinary tract infections. And since lactobacilli dominate the urogenital flora of healthy premenopausal women, it's been suggested that the restoration of that urogenital flora with lactobacilli can help protect against those urinary tract infections. And remember, enzymes also in this product, they help us to digest starches, proteins, dairy, fat, and the cellulose fibers found in plants. And folks, this is important because as we age, we secrete and produce less and less of these digestive enzymes, or enzymes in general. But enzymes too, not only do they help us digest those foods, but they also help us to get the most out of those medicinal plants and nutrition that are found in Touchstone Essentials products. So is the urinary tract affected by the health of the endocannabinoid system? Well, funny you should ask, because yes, it is. The endocannabinoid system is the most important system in the body, and it's known as the master regulator. So if we have a deficiency or a dysregulation of the endocannabinoid system. It literally throws everything off balance. And what they know is both CB1 and CB2 receptors are found in the urinary bladder and in the urinary tract. So, as you know, scientists estimate that this endocannabinoid system is about 500 million years old, but it was only recently discovered in the 1990s. And these endocannabinoids are natural cannabis-like molecules that our own bodies produce. And these endocannabinoids that we produce are responsible for regulating many of the functions in our brain and in our body, including, but not limited to, I should say, our body temperature, how well we sleep, how much energy we have, the pain in our body, our pleasure, stress response, immune function, digestion. So we need to keep our endocannabinoid system in working order. There was a study published in the Indian Journal of Urology. And what they said is preclinical studies demonstrated that cannabinoids appear to positively affect the urinary incontinence processes in the body. So in other words, by feeding our endocannabinoid system, we're able to strengthen our urinary tract so we're not getting up all night to use the bathroom as we age. Dr. Mark Blaskovich, who is a senior researcher at the Institute for Molecular Bioscience in Australia, found that CBD was effective against E. coli, which again is the cause of many of those urinary tract infections. So when our systems are challenged by viruses or bacteria or other microbes, when our system is challenged by an injury, by toxins, or by other stressors, our endocannabinoid system fights to get everything back to normal as quickly as possible. And that's known as homeostasis. So the dysregulation, so it's not working, the dysregulation of the endocannabinoid system has been shown to play a role in almost all disease pathology today. So what we have then is we feed our body with the greens to alkalize. We get the enzymes in there to derive more benefit out of what we are eating. We get the probiotics in our body. We detox our body, and then we feed our CB1 and CB2 receptor sites in the urinary tract with our CBD oil. So the Calm Premium 750 has 25 milligrams of a full spectrum CBD. It's organic. There's no THC, no solvents, no artificial ingredients. It acts very quickly. It's highly absorbable. It's non-GMO. You can't find better stuff, folks. And in the Calm Premium 1500, now we've got 50 milligrams per serving of CBD. And this is a broad spectrum CBD because it contains several plant compounds of the cannabis plant. When it's a broad spectrum CBD, it retains that full spectrum of flavonoids, cannabinoids, and terpenes. And terpenes are those aromatic compounds found in many plants. You can smell it in cinnamon, right? You can smell it in all of the aromatic plants, and ginger. But these terpenes, many people associate terpenes with cannabis because that cannabis plant has high concentrations of them. And these aromatic compounds create that characteristic scent of many plants, such as cannabis and lavender and eucalyptus, orange, and things like that. It's the terpenes are what give cannabis that peppery aroma and that peppery taste. Now, if a CBD product contains several of the naturally occurring cannabis plant extracts, such as terpenes and other cannabinoids, including up to 0.3% THC, it's considered a full spectrum CBD. The Calm Advanced is THC compliant, and Touchstone Essentials hemp is naturally low in THC with less than 0.3%. So there are no psychoactive effects. So folks, in a healthy young adult, water accounts for approximately 70% of the total body weight, and water is known as the fluid of life. We've got water inside the cells called intracellular fluid. We've got water outside of the cells, the extracellular fluids. So in order to keep the urinary tract happy and healthy and keep those nephron filters clear and clean and running smoothly, make sure you stay well hydrated, eat alkaline, and take your supplements. It's as easy as that. So that concludes tonight's presentation. I thank you so much for joining us, and I ask you to mark your calendars to join us on September 23rd for a look at immune health, which is a perfect topic with the schools open now and the flu season also rapidly approaching. So thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Cindy. Wonderful job. Thank you for that great presentation and wonderful information that is going to help all of us. Balancing the body's pH is an important thing, and you've taught us how to do it. So we appreciate that. So we take a break next week as we go to Mastermind Live in Scottsdale, and we're back on the 23rd and learning all about the immune system. So we hope that you'll join us. Mark your calendars, as Cindy said, and we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.